Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to the summer edition of the Faculty of Music Signature Series, Thursdays at Noon. This special summer series is presented by the University of Toronto Alumni Relations Office and the Faculty of Music. My name is Korin-Thomas-Smith, and I have the honor of being your host for today. I am a two-time graduate of the Faculty of Music, and as a student, I had the great fortune of attending and performing in many of these free performances in Walter Hall at the faculty during the academic year on Thursdays at noon. We're so grateful to have you for joining us today, joining us this summer. I encourage you to keep an eye out at music.utoronto.ca and to join our social media channels at U of T Music, that's the @ U of T Music, for further updates about performances this fall, like our free Thursdays at Noon series. Before we begin, I wish to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. A couple of housekeeping items before we begin officially. We recommend headphones for the optimal listening experience, but if you don't have them, that's okay. You can ask us questions for our distinguished guests today using the Q&A chat box function, which should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Today, finally, we'll be introducing the esteemed piano trio, the Griffin Trio, who will be our guest today. The Griffin Trio is firmly established as one of the world's preeminent piano trios. For more than 25 years, it has earned acclaim and has impressed international audiences with its highly refined, dynamic, and memorable performances, and is committed to redefining chamber music for the 21st century. As an ensemble, they have been thrice awarded the Juno Award for Classical Album of the Year and continue to lead in contemporary chamber music, commissioning new works and touring and masterclassing throughout North America and Europe. Today, I'm joined by two of the three Griffins, violinist Annalee Patipatanakoon Associate Professor in Violin and Performance Area Chair of Strings, and Jamie Parker, Rupert E. Edwards Chair in Piano Performance at the University of Toronto. Back to music. I'm so happy to be welcoming you guys today. How are you guys doing? Let's start with Annalee.
Great. Korin, you were supposed to mispronounce mine.
I couldn't do you like that.
We could get into a whole dialogue about how to pronounce it. That was great. I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
And Jamie?
It's great to be here, Korin. Thanks. And it's great to see the building in the background. I haven't been in there since about March 12th, I think, or 10th, something like that.
Same here. I did my last opera of my master's, and then I was booted out. My stuff's still in my locker. So, but I was gonna say, I've been practicing your name as often as possible. Like, I still want you to be able to to give the pronunciation. But yeah, it is. I want everyone to know exactly how to pronounce your name. If you guys would like to clarify. So
often people see the length of it, and in rehearsal, manage, and then of course, when stressed in a public situation, mess it up. And actually, John Zosky, or Peter Zosky, sorry, had a classic situation where we had an interview with him, and he actually pre-recorded my name in the event that he got nervous, and he actually bailed. So he was going to say it, he practiced it, he practiced it with me, and then he hit the button, and it came out Annalee button Patipatanakoon.
But I always tell audiences, because we've had, actually we had one terrific presenter once in somewhere in Miami, and they would sort of hire these really cheesy hosts for these concerts at these senior living communities, and so this guy, the Griffin Trio, great friends of mine, and so he'd ask for our names beforehand, and he had this little piece of paper, and it says, on piano it's Jamie Parker, and on cello Roman Borys, and on violin Annalee. He just kind of bailed. He totally bailed on the last name. But whenever what happens with audiences, I tell them, look, you just think West Side Story. I like to live in America. I like to live in America. Annalee Patipatanakoon. Annalee Patipatanakoon. And it's easy. It works. Rolls off the tongue well.
Oh, absolutely. And I was just thinking about, I was getting my water. I was like, Annalee Patipatanakoon the whole time. So I'm happy I got it right this time. I couldn't.
There you go.
Yeah. But I'm so excited to be able to hear your work today. You guys are, again, a Toronto entity. You pretty much know we're in the city by classical musicians. So it's so nice to be able to have this kind of like informal, formal chat with you guys and learn more about your craft. And we're going to be hearing a piano trio number 4 in E minor, also known as the Dumky Trio by Antonín, Dvorák, another name that I have a lot of trouble with. But again, I've been practicing. So we're going to be hearing 4 movements today, number 1, 2, 4, and 5. And I think we should get started with it, with the first one, Lento Maestoso by Antonín Dvorák. Beautiful. I'll tell you that lento maestoso does not stay that way for long, does it?
Yeah, I mean, almost all of these have two very different characters, and so there's usually sort of a slow and either tragic or expressive, and then there's either a light and charming or a triumphant sort of section. So he really bounces back and forth that way.
100%.
He's a great storyteller. He goes from one emotion to another.
Yeah. I guess maybe you should talk about that. How, as instrumentalists, do you, because again, as a singer, as an ignorant singer who has the words given to me, I have the story literally provided for me. How do you guys create kind of emotional landscape and kind of through line kind of like thought patterns for these pieces? How do you interpret them? And as an ensemble of three very different individuals who have their own life stories, how do you create that sort of thought process?
Well, I think basically for a lot of composers, and this, I would say probably the greatest realization of this is with Beethoven, where the idea is that a melody is a character in a story. And so he's writing these epic novels of discovery, of exploration, of struggle, of triumph, and so forth. And so I think from a fairly early age, we learn to identify melodies as characters in a story, and so they just go off on these adventures. And so, I mean, everybody's story might be a little bit different, but we all have, basically, say if there's an emotion of anger, something happened that, something that Napoleon did made Beethoven angry, so he puts this anger into a piece of music. And then, a couple hundred years roll around, I just got a speeding ticket, so I'm angry. So I put that anger into the performance. And then someone in the audience is angry because their fish at dinner was overcooked. So the core emotions stay the same. It's just how you fill in the story or the detail or the interpretation. That's all, I think.
I would just add that, Korin, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the vocal world, you have words and we don't. And so what we end up doing is we visualize a lot, and it becomes actually very emotional. So it's the combination. It's not always the case. It depends on the piece and the moment. But yeah, we don't have actual words, so we have to almost come up with them ourselves in a different way.
Exactly. That's so interesting. I feel like that's another kind of like, I think that maybe adds a little more emotional depth. You're taking a concept and really applying it to your own sort of life, so you have your own kind of personal imagery with something, whereas maybe I have to filter my own imagery through words already given to me. I think maybe it gives you guys an extra step of artistic license in that own way.
Yeah, I think there's a different kind of freedom, certainly. But sometimes, when say when I get to work with singers, it is nice to know really exactly what we're supposed to be feeling and expressing to an audience.
Well, that the phrasing actually is dictated by the words, whereas for us, we have rhythmic gestures that become characters and that dictate a certain visualization or emotion. But it's the harmonies too that we are driven to the harmonies, because that's all we have. We don't have anything that is written above. So you have this wonderful sort of combination of both.
Awesome. We have, speaking of the harmony and the phrasing that is given to us versus not given to us, how do you balance performing what's written? This is the audience question, by the way. How do you balance performing that's written versus some personal improvisation?
I mean, there's not really improvisation in terms of the notes. I mean, we're given the score, and that's what we have to play. What I think maybe what the person's getting at is that one of the things that we have to reconcile personally is the idea of an objective and a subjective interpretation. So objectively, we have the score, we have what we deem to be the composer's intent on the score. And so we want to do justice to that, we want to honor that, we want to be responsible to that. But then as a subjective person, there is personality, there is what inspires you, what excites you, and we have to add something of ourselves, or else there's not much point in going to performances of pieces, because you go to hear the music, but you also go to hear the performers. So it's important for us to be able to input our own personality into an objective understanding of the score. So that's one of the things that we have to balance, I think.
And a good example would be, or an easy example to understand is, Jamie often mentions this when we're conducting chamber music master classes. He will just say, especially when it's romantic, especially when it's romantic repertoire, he says, you know, the composer will give us some indication of a tempo and maybe some more directives. But Jamie also thinks that there should always be the word written rubato. And Jamie, maybe you want to go on.
Oh yeah, no, like basically after every tempo indication, you know, allegro, adagio, allegretto, with tasteful musicianship, with appropriate rubato. I mean, unless you're playing, you know, a march or something a little, you know, more unforgiving in terms of rubato, everything should breathe. You know, everything, you know, there's a little bit moving forward, a little bit pulling back. And of course, you know, again, for, you know, for pianists, when we work with singers, we get an understanding of, you know, there's time at the end of that phrase. And I mean, you have to take a breath. We don't. Pianists, we can just go, you know, and we can play for 10 minutes without breathing at all, you know. And so this is something that, this is where the, you know, the exchange of thing happens between musicians of different kinds. So.
And back to the question, I mean, that is our way of improvising in this setting, you know, because we don't actually have chord charts and have the ability and actually the knowledge. Sadly, we all wish we could improvise the way our jazz friends do, but this is our way.
So let's see how we don't improvise in the next piece coming up. So this is coming up. It's the second movement, the polka adagio of the Dumky Trio by Antonín Dvorák. So please enjoy. was so wonderful. And I think to restate what you guys already told me about how the character changes so much and varies so much within the piece. Again, it started off so kind of like macabre, like how, I'm not sure to really describe it, and then eventually got to this point. I was like, how did we get here?
Yeah. Oh, it's great music for that. And what's also fun for the performers is we get a slow section, a fast section, and then the slow section comes back and the fast section comes back. And usually there's a little bit of a trade. Somebody that had this melody now gets this accompaniment. Somebody who had that rhythmic pattern now gets this. So there's a nice little trade-off on who gets what material.
Jamie also has a really great intro for this when we're playing this in performance. Jamie, do you want to tell them? We're only hearing...
I can't even remember.
Well, no, we're only hearing 4 movements today, so it really doesn't apply.
Oh, yeah, but the Dumky Trio it's a 6-movement piece. Almost all the chamber music that we play are 3 or 4 movement pieces. And so I always tell audiences that the Dumky Trio is one of the best values in chamber music. So all the movements are shorter. There's 6 of them. So.
For the price of 1, right? Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, they like it. They like it.
So we had some questions from the audience that I think was very cool to hear. There are 2 questions that are kind of around the same topic, so I'll kind of combine them. I kind of noticed when you guys are performing, there's a sort of like physicality in gesture that helps like you guys like maybe talk about mood or tempo. It's that kind of, I found it was so interesting to watch how you guys would communicate through the other parts of your body as well. Actually, that kind of does not go the question at all. That was just a question, comment that I had to make. I thought it was really cool. But the questions that the audience gave, how are decisions made in your working together? You guys are listening to each other, but how are those issues decided? And along with that, how do you guys resolve differences in an interpretation of a piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and actually with our good friend Rob Capella, one of the world's great music educators and commentators, we've actually done some presentations with him on, a chamber ensemble as a leaderless team, because essentially there is, well, look, I mean, in some of the old school ensembles, there may have been one sort of head dictator of a string quartet or a piano trio, but generally speaking, these are groups of equal people. And so basically everybody has the common goal of getting the best possible interpretation performance together. So you'll talk about ideas. There'll be some disagreements. There'll be agreements, and you just sort of work these things out. I think one of the things that we've always felt is that there's no, or sort of there's a statute of limitations on interpretation. So if we pull a piece off our shelf we haven't played in 10 years, okay, we've got our markings from the way we used to do it, but we're still open to say, I think I want a little bit more time here. Is that okay? And so there's always an ongoing conversation.
And I'll just add that, of course, there's much discussion that goes on in the rehearsal period, but it's really the performances, and it's playing it in performance for an audience with that extra. I mean, we need that conversation with the audience to ultimately makes I wouldn't say no decision is ever final, right? We make the decision for the time, but we see what works and what doesn't work. We can go back into the rehearsal period after a concert and say, wow, okay, we got to rethink that whole thing because that didn't feel very good. But the last thing I'll say is that the great thing is that given we're on our 28th year, there's the privilege of knowing each other so well that even on the stage, we know a piece, again, equally well, but we'll be able to, like our antennas are always up. And so we'll know if somebody's wanting to do something different. And so everybody just goes with it. We may not like it, but we'll do it.
Yeah. Well, occasionally one thing that will happen is, all musicians are adjusting to different acoustic spaces wherever we play. Of course, pianists, we're always adjusting to whatever we get. And we meet wonderful friends as pianists. We meet horrible people we hope we never see ever again. So sometimes there'll be, like, say, a slow movement of a Beethoven trio where I have the first 2 phrases on my own and then the others join. And if it's a really beautiful piano, I might get a little self-indulgent, play a little bit slower, go, oh, I can play it slower. The sound is carrying, it sounds great. But I always tell people, look, if the tempo's way too slow when you come in, just pick it up and I'll go with you, you know? So, so there's a bit of that on occasion. And, you know, there's just so many variables in our life that you pretty much, you have to be adaptable.
Yeah. Interesting. I have another question. I think this is also very interesting, seeing how you both did your education in the States. Jamie, you studied at Juilliard, I believe, and Annalee, you were at Indiana and Curtis. How has being a Canadian influenced your musical development, or maybe it hasn't? Annalee, maybe you want to start?
Oh, as a Canadian, I am so grateful that, first of all, my mother insisted that her three girls play music. She had no intention that we were going to do this for a living. And my two younger sisters have gone on to other careers, but started out in music with me. Just to have that privilege of, a Suzuki program was starting up in Calgary, Alberta at the time. And my mom just plunked me into it. And had it not been for that, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? I wouldn't have had the opportunity to audition for Curtis, or I think at that time, I was also grateful that places like Banff Center brought a lot of these international pedagogues to Canada, so that I didn't have to go and find them. They came, you know, they brought them to Banff Center or to Calgary for master classes, or to Vancouver. And so I would travel there and just get to meet these amazing people that I knew down the road I wanted to search out and study with later on. That was then. I mean, this is now, Canada has changed so much in its educational sort of offerings that a lot of our students don't actually have to travel as far as maybe the two of us did. Jamie, I don't know, maybe you want to continue on that.
Yeah, no, I had a great time studying in both countries. I was at the Vancouver Academy in high school, then UBC for my undergrad, and then went down to Juilliard. And certainly, you know, we would tend to seek out other Canadians just because we had that shared commonality. I have some great American friends, and it's just, you know, it's just a tragedy to see the U.S. sort of slip into failed state status. I mean, it's just an absolute disaster what's going on there. And so I think even during my Juilliard years, I mean, I loved the energy and excitement of New York City. I mean, who wouldn't, you know? But I always loved the fact that I could come back to Canada, you know, play a couple of concerts in the middle of my studies, and then go back and just sort of, you know, get sort of refreshed with sanity and civility before going back. And I think that's even more important now. I mean, the cost of education, as you know, Korin, I mean, you take a look at, you know, if we could have invested in the futures of university tuition in the US, you know, we'd all be millionaires. I mean, it went from, you know, 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, you know, it's for 1 year. And it's the whole, so many systems in the US are designed to only favor the wealthy, and whether it's healthcare, education, and it's this is not how a society should run. And we're seeing all the impacts of what's going on in, you know, in the last few months. But it was, I mean, I really enjoyed my studies in the US, but I love living in Canada and being back here.
Of course. Yeah, that's just, it's the crazy thing seeing my international kind of peers go through that, and just exorbitant costs. And I don't know, I love the Canadian music scene a lot, and it brings musicians like you here. So it's amazing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Annalee. Sorry.
I know that you want to get to the next piece of music, or do you have another question?
Oh no, I was gonna start my.
Here's my challenge to you and to the audience. So in the next two clips, it might take two clips for you to, you know, just listen, enjoy, of course, but also watch a little bit. And we're challenging you to notice one odd thing. Jamie, don't say a thing.
It's not a wardrobe malfunction. Let me just say that. But it's something around that.
Okay.
Challenge. Okay.
So with that challenge in mind, I'm very excited. I think I already found it. I think I know what it is, but we'll talk about it later. We're going into the fourth movement of the Dumky Trio, the Andante Moderato. which of course we'll never say that way. So we'll see exactly what turns we get. So hope you guys enjoy. Nice. That's so cool. What a beautiful, just like harmonic landscape that he's able to create with that theme. Is just so kind of like simple, but develops in such a beautiful way. I love that. So interesting to listen to. What can you say to that, right? I have a question for you. I believe it was an audience question that I wanted to hop off on, but I think I completely lost it. Oh, okay, yeah. So one of the residencies you guys are responsible for is the Banff Residency, right? You guys collaborate with the Banff Institute in Alberta with their program with strings there. And that has a particularly special significance to Annalee and the Griffin Trio's origins. Could I ask about that?
I don't know if, well, it's, I would say that we all actually have a connection to Banff in a long-term way. I grew up in Calgary, so Banff was very close. But both Jamie and Roman actually attended the Banff Center even before I did in the summers. And this is where actually we all met. We weren't a trio yet, but that's how we kind of knew about each other. It was a great place for so much talent, not just across Canada, but the US and internationally, to come together because they brought these amazing pedagogues for master classes. So that was back in the late 70s, early 80s, which makes us. But since then, and you know what, the Banff Center has always been instrumental in our whole education. I mean, we had residencies there. Jamie had a winter residency there. We recorded there. And it was just so wonderful a couple of years ago when they came and approached us to become directors for programming in the summer for classical music. And so we came up with two programs that sadly were not able to happen this summer, but one was called Evolution Classical, which was a program that was not just piano trio specific. It was smaller chamber ensembles, but it could be anything. It could be voice, it could be winds, it could be dance, it could be percussion, any kind of small combination. And it was about creating and curating a program for audiences. So it was not just a discovery of the repertoire and creating a project, but how to communicate that to an audience. And then the second program was called Evolution Quartet. So in the meantime, I'll let Jamie continue, but in the meantime, our past months have been, since everything got shut down, is just reimagining how we're going to continue, first of all, online for a bit. And then when the summer approaches next year, how we can come together, sort of reimagine. Oh, that's Jamie's dog.
That's my dog. It's sort of a terrier / Wolverine cross. So say for the faculty for the Evolution Classical program, we had a lot of conversations. Roman gets on the phone and contacts all these people. So there were people who were experts in music, but there were also, like a choreographer, dancer, a visuals projection expert, sort of a life coach person, so just all sorts of people, all there to help people sort of really fully realize themselves and really bring something to the projects that people. So basically it's just taking musicians and just giving them a lot more tools than just what we typically get at music schools, which is super important when you're younger. But when you want to make that leap into being a professional musician, you can't just say, well, what's your 5-year plan? Well, I'm going to practice. Well, that's fine, but that's not a 5-year plan, And so it's the idea of really giving young professionals and even mid-career professionals just the opportunity to explore more tools to get them more comfortable with what they're doing or to innovate new projects and programs to bring to the community.
Yeah, the question I was trying to get at was about the origins of the Griffin Trio, and there's a wonderful video on your website. Let me just find the direct URL so I can actually reference it properly. thegryphintrio.com. If you go to the bio section, there's a wonderful video that describes the origins of everyone meeting at Banff before they studied in the States, and you guys coming with the name of the Griffin Trio and why you chose the Griffin, which was another audience question that we had that we may not have time to get to. But just because we were trying to run out of time, and I want to be able to introduce the next piece so that everyone can hear it. So the next piece we're going to be listening to is the fifth movement from the Dumky Trio, the Allegro. And with that, I hope everyone enjoys. What a way to end it, eh?
Yeah, that's always fun when composers do that. They kind of fade away, and then slam you with something really exciting.
Oh yeah. Oldest trick in the book, but gets me every time. I'm like, it's also funny when the opposite happens. What's that? It's like Symphony in F. What's that piece that goes? I don't know. I learned it in first year, and then it ends just tapered off. Opposite effect, but you didn't need to hear that.
So string quartet. Yeah, I think yeah.
So I think it was actually really cool that we actually get back to the Griffin name. How did that name come to represent you three as a group?
So we all had to, create a list. And funnily enough, Jamie and Roman's list both had the name Gryphon on it and spelled the way it's written now, Gryphon. And both were interested in mythology, and we thought Jamie will elaborate because we actually didn't do a lot of research on this. Somebody else did. But the one I like the most is that Griffins are guardians of treasures and are often those creatures that you see sitting outside of, beautiful libraries and art museums and guarding the treasures inside. So we feel like we are guarding the old and the new treasures. So Jamie, though, you can remind people of the rest.
Well, and of course, you have to, for those of you old enough to remember, our lists were facts to each other on that horrible scale. But what happened was some critic did more research than we did and said that Griffins symbolize the blending of cosmic force and psychic energy. Yeah, that's what we meant.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah, exactly the intention.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was when I was listening to all these pieces, it's just amazing how, I don't know, because like, when you think of strings, you think of like string quartet, you think of pianos. Pianos are more of a solo instrument as people kind of think them in their head, a la Liszt or of like the piano concerto, stuff like that. You don't necessarily see these instruments in cohesion with each other, at least not that in our common thought, at least in mine. What is the difference between playing in an ensemble where the timbral differences are kind of don't necessarily mesh together as naturally as one would think? That was a really loaded question of saying, how do you adjust your playing to suit each other's sound?
I think I'll start. I mean, because Jamie can't really change, other than the quality of his piano. So I think it's up to the strings to constantly be trying to match whatever he's able to do. So yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I mean, look, sometimes I have to work really hard to drown them out, and sometimes it's easy.
Perfect.
I think I'll just we'll switch back to the Banff because you were talking about Banff again, and something else that we're constantly sort of being reminded of, and in workshops right now is just at Banff especially, and I know at U of T as well, is the workshop that we're involved in at Banff is called Centering Indigenous. What's it called, Jamie? Centering Indigenous Wisdoms. And so what's tricky for us, so alongside, so you're talking about strings playing with piano, so we have that issue. We're talking about classical music, and how does that fit into what we're having to consider in today's world, which is recognizing, acknowledging the inherent problems and what's been, Jamie has a better way of describing all this.
No, but it's so, as just watching, all the Black Lives Matters protests and just, the indigenous Black people of colors and just trying to honor this better from a position of white privilege, a position of being in larger institutions that, a lot of institutions have traditionally not been too aware of these issues or cared a lot about these issues. And I think this is at the forefront of consciousness for a lot of people. So this is a big issue that we're trying to reconcile with. I know there are various committees. We've got a committee at U of T, partly in response to that fantastic alumni letter that a music alumni letter that was circulated and sent around, and a lot of people wanting change, wanting just a bit more of a compassionate modern look on things. And I think that's something that a lot of artists are trying to figure out how we can help, how we can be better allies.
And especially when it relates to the older repertoire that we all come from tradition. I think it's a little clearer as we commission new works and engage composers and collaborators. There's much more opportunity, but how do we integrate and how do we include, in a history that is so entrenched and, as Jamie said, privileged, because again, a lot of these Indigenous kids have not had the opportunity that we, like, again, I mentioned my privilege in Calgary, like to have this Suzuki school that started up. I mean, I wouldn't be playing the violin otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's a huge barrier I think that we're facing in the arts. It's just the access to university education. Who is granted that opportunity? Who is able to participate? And especially in this field, it's a lot of that. In your other projects, like your Listen Up project initiative, is that something that you guys are also tackling within that?
Yeah, and in fact, this is a project where it's essentially a year-long project, and it sort of came out of the notion that when we travel, we'll give school concerts, we'll give various community outreach things, but how could we make a more lasting impression with kids? And so again, Roman got on the phone and started organizing and producing things. And so the Listen Up project, what it involves is we go into a community that Roman has identified and a school that has, most importantly, a supportive principal, because they can sort of say, your classes are canceled, go work on the Listen Up project. You need a music teacher, an English teacher, an art teacher. And sometimes we bring in people to help complement the teachers at a school. So basically a composer will go in and work with the kids, all of these different elementary school kids, and usually grades, grade 5 or 6, and they will write little snippets of melody. They will write little bits of poetry. And then the composer will come in, sort of put this all together, make a piece for piano trio and kids choir. And then in spring, we come in with our friend Rob Capella, who I mentioned earlier, and he conducts, and we sort of whip this huge finale concert into shape. And so some of the kids that maybe weren't in the choir, they did some artwork that is on the same theme that's hanging around the stage or the school gym. But basically, it's a way of just involving all sorts of kids in this art project that runs over the course of the year. And one of the most spectacular ones was the one we did up in Northwest Territories. And it involved, 5 or 6 communities, and we flew in these little tiny planes and played concerts and got to meet some of the teachers, some of the kids, some of the parents, and we're still in touch with some of them up there. And it was, we basically had all these kids come down to Yellowknife for just a ridiculously fulfilling art week, where they just did everything, singer songwriting, learning how to journal, singing in a choir. We helped get the Yellowknife Youth Choir off the ground. Actually, at U of T alumni, Susan Chantora, a singer, she'd always wanted to start up a kids choir. And so this gave her a way of starting that, and she's been able to keep that going. So it's been, the Listen Up project has been a lot of fun.
Amazing. I had a question from the audience, more directly directed towards me. And they were wondering why I was sitting out in the road in the open. And if I was scared I'll get hit by a car, to which I respond, I'll go to a much safer place. So I'll now go to the SpongeBob Under the Water universe. I hope that satisfies the question from 5.5-year-old twins out there. Thank you guys for listening. And then I also wanted to ask the audience if anyone else, hey, come on, Northern Lights. If anyone else found the wardrobe issue that in the videos that we were watching, and if you guys want to expose the secret.
Well, I'll sort of explain that, because it's me basically. Since I can't have a page turner in socially distanced times, we all use iPads, and so to turn the pages, we have Bluetooth foot pedals, and that's normally fine, except I have really wide feet, like sort of quadruple E, and so when my foot is just resting on the foot pedal, it sometimes advances the page without me wanting to. So what I do is I take my left shoe off, and I just have my foot in my sock, which is able to kind of rest comfortably in between the backward and forward pedals, and then I can sort of pedal like that. So that's what that was.
Yeah, I noticed. It's like I saw the iPad. I'm just like, iPad. He's turning with his feet, and I saw a shoe just randomly behind the piano. I thought that was so cool. But you have to, especially in these times, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jamie, you just have to hide your shoe. Just push it a little.
Well, yeah, I gotta push. Yeah, but the thing is, I have to quickly put it on when I stand up to bow or
Oh,
speak. So I want
Oh.
to keep it close. I don't want to have a, be, reaching under the piano.
Right. I think I have my last and most important question. What's your favorite summer activity?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I'll say that we have not been home in the summer in possibly 30 years. We just haven't been home. So I have always loved gardening, but I start something and then I have to leave and it dies. So this summer I'm looking out, you can't see it, but I have a beautiful, I don't know, I'm experimenting. Not everything is beautiful. I have some really strange carrots that are growing, but I have kale and tomatoes and lettuce. And so I'm in kind of, that's keeping me happy.
Perfect. And you, Jamie?
Yeah, we actually have tomatoes growing too, but I'm not a gardener. I'm terrible. But for me, actually, the most fun thing is to just be hanging out with my family, and biking around with the neighborhood with my kids. Because usually in the summer, as Annalee said, we're busy. I mean, we would have been 3 weeks in Banff, 2 weeks teaching piano trios at Orford, another 3 weeks at Banff, going to Parry Sound. My whole family goes to Ottawa for a couple of weeks, and then so it's just been a lot more time, around the family, which has been great because I usually don't get that in the summer.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel that. I was supposed to be in California this summer. I was so excited, and then this happened and ruined my life. But that's okay. Now I'm still in Toronto. I'm enjoying the city in a new way. It's amazing. It's taken this to kind of make me appreciate music making and
you're healthy.
Exactly. So what more can one ask for?
For now.
So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Two wonderful members of the Griffin Trio in our Summer Thursdays at Noon performance Q&A session. Please give them a round of applause in your own homes or a silent jazz hand. Please join us next week as we join and discuss and explore some repertoire for voice and piano. Woo! Finally, I've been referencing I'm a singer, and finally I can know what I'm talking about. Next week, our guests will be Russell Braun and Carolyn Mole. But it's been so amazing to talk to you guys and learn about musicianship in a different way than I'm used to. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Corin. It's been a pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, have a great afternoon and enjoy your summer. See you next week. Goodbye.